The Sulfur Cycle by Grace Vent, Gage Fry, Jonah Voorhees, Evan Heinzman, and Jason Barr. Where is sulfur found? Sulfur enters the atmosphere from several natural resources. Sulfur is stored in rocks and minerals underground. Sulfur is also found in SO4 2-, which is in salts deep in the ocean. So there's an example.
How does the sulfur cycle work? There are 3 steps to the sulfur cycle to initiate. Number 1, sulfur enters the atmosphere from several natural resources. Number 2, plant roots absorb sulfate ions. And number 3, insoluble metallic sulfides are deposited as rock or metal ores.
So here we have a diagram of the sulfur cycle. It begins off with the dimethyl sulfide, which comes from the ocean. That dimethyl sulfide would then become sulfur dioxide. And then another way to get that sulfur dioxide is from the gases of volcanoes and other such things. And then another byproduct of those gases are hydrogen sulfide. The sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide can then both become sulfur trioxide. And the crazy thing is that sulfur trioxide then has 2 more paths that it can take. The first being it either can directly become sulfuric acid, which goes into fog precipitation, or with help of NH4+, it can become ammonium sulfate, which will also go into fog precipitation. Then once that falls back down, it can become sulfate salts, and another way to get those salts is through decaying matter. It either can become directly into sulfate salts, or it can go down, become hydrogen sulfide, and then into sulfur, which will then go back into sulfate salts. And then finally, it'll all be absorbed back into the plants.
How is sulfur obtained in the cycle? It can be obtained by natural resources. These examples of how sulfur is obtained is from the soil, rocks, fossil fuels, smelting of metals, burning coal, and refining fossil fuels.
Which organic compound is sulfur found in? The first one is ammonium sulfate. Ammonium sulfate is a chemical compound that has 24% sulfur. Sulfur is also found in hydrogen sulfide, which is a odorless hydrate gas. It is also found in sulfur dioxide, which is a chemical compound that is responsible for the smell of burning matches.
Identified 2 major human activities influencing the sulfur cycle. One is the burning of coal, which you can see in the bottom left. And right next to that is the smelting of metals. And then the 2 largest storage areas for sulfur is found in underground rocks and ocean sediments. One of the major reasons that the sulfur cycle is important to humans is because it balances out the sulfur in reservoirs, and it helps make the earth a more habitable environment, not just for us, but for plants and other animals. It is also important because it makes up many different proteins, and it can also be used in the DNA sequence